Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in this week as keeping informed with the news has come at a pretty hefty price. So I want everybody to just come in, relax. We have somewhat of a unique show today, and I'm really excited to tell you about it. So I'm just going to give people a few minutes to come in. Comment and let us know where you're watching from. Of course, this broadcast is from Bangkok, Thailand, but if you're in Greater Asia or in the West, wherever you are, just drop a little globe emoji with where you are, so we know what type of audiences we're having. All right, I want to get straight into it because we have a special guest today. So thank you again for tuning in. I just want to start off by saying, since the beginning of this pandemic, staying informed has been somewhat of a double-edged sword. On one hand, we want to make sure that we're informed, especially as expats, because we're especially vulnerable to changing political climates and atmospheres where we reside, especially with COVID-19. And then on the other hand, we realize that too much news can leave us feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, especially in light of the international protests around the death of George Floyd. Before I go any further, if you don't know me, my name's Liana Freeman. I'm your host and political correspondent here at Ebony Expats News. We're here to keep you updated, informed, and empowered. That last word's really big. Empowered through a global network of travelers, Black travelers, and expats. But we're also dedicated here at the Ebony Expats team to basically showcase the talents and the passion and the passions within the Black community abroad. And as a media conglomerate, we're dedicated to broadcasting Black voices, elevated Black businesses, and ultimately creating positive imagery of Black life abroad that serves to diversify our stories. Alrighty, so welcome to week 10. Quarantine restrictions have been lifted around the world in some form or another, and with restrictions varying by area, and we're just adjusting to the new normal. In countries like Thailand, social distancing, face masks, and face shields are a requirement for any working individuals, including myself. I went back to work this week, and I actually am required now to wear the face mask, the face shield, and stay a meter apart from all my coworkers. And my classes are super small, and so the new normal is definitely a normal with COVID-19. Alrighty, schools and gyms and cinemas opened this week, but again, at restricted capacity. As Thailand, I feel like on the spectrum of countries taking the reopening very seriously, Thailand's definitely on the high end of that, which I appreciate as an expat. Okay, so since this week has been, oh, there's me. I know my hair, I think, shows up blue here, but it's actually purple. But that's me in my face mask and my face shield. And this is quite typical of anyone who's having to go to work, especially if you're working with people as a teacher. Alrighty, so since this week has been so heavy, we're going to keep news to a minimum, highlighting stories that we feel are most relevant, and spending some extra time talking to a Black expat who's lived overseas for over a decade. So in this episode, we're going to do three things. First, we're going to discuss Black Lives Matter protests and its impact on the Black community abroad. Then we're going to broadcast stories about international solidarity. And lastly, we're going to speak to actor, director, and founder of Gate Theater Group, Chiang Mai's first English-speaking performing arts center. He will share his experiences in Thailand, teaching theater, and the unique things that's happened while he's been abroad. Okay, so let's get straight into travel updates. There aren't really significant travel updates to report. Some airlines, like Oman Airlines, are still making repatriation efforts, and American Airlines laid off many of its workers this week. Greece has announced that it's open for tourism from July 1st onward, and they will allow citizens from 29 countries to enter Greece for tourism, while restricting travels from some of the world's hardest hit countries like France, the United States, and the UK. I felt that this was significant because it begs the question, will barring citizens from countries hit hardest by COVID-19 become a trend? And what will the future look like for travel for passport holders from those nations? Alrighty, so we're going to go into ongoing news coming out of the United States. So, as we all know by this point, the death of George Floyd, in addition to Breonna Taylor and countless others, has sparked massive protests demanding accountability, demanding the end of police brutality. Protesters have showed up in masses in dozens of cities, and according to CNN, around 40 cities around the nation have imposed curfews. Now, as black expats, we relocated abroad to largely enhance our lives and live them more fully, or to live our best lives, as many people say. However, an equally important portion of this conversation, especially in light of Black Lives Matter protests, is how many people have moved abroad to either take a break from racism or just to adjust to a life where their skin isn't cause for violence, or even raise children without fear of police brutality. As somebody who's been abroad for the better half of 7 years, I have met countless people from around the United States tell my friends that this was basically a need for their mental health to just get out of those atmospheres. And so we're happy on this episode to be able to also bring that to light. We understand that protests has been the only way to catapult the civil rights movement forward, as well as other movements around the world, like the Haitian Revolution, the Indian independence movement, the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and various other movements around the world that have pressed back against colonial regimes. But in the same breath, as expats abroad, we often battle with negative stereotypes imposed on us by Western media and racial biases imposed on us by people who don't identify as Black, telling Black stories. And symbolically, we realize that our lives abroad and our voices and our energy are pulled in multiple ways. And it almost feels like it's our job to kind of go forward and break those barriers internationally, but where our energy is also pulled back from the nations that we represent, because we can't turn a cheek to the chaos that's going on there and the larger conversation of change. The conversation about rioting, which of course has been probably the second largest topic of conversation around the world, not just in the United States, but the conversation about rioting and looting is quite frankly getting very, very old to talk about. Looking at American history, not only have most violent and senseless riots been initiated by white Americans, but multiple news outlets have confirmed that protests often become violent when instigated by white men or white supremacist groups who seek to deter attention from the cause and deter attention from the people just trying to peacefully show their solidarity with this movement. Actually, Mayor Jenny Durkan of Seattle said this past Monday, "I want to acknowledge that the violence and the destruction, both here in Seattle and across the country, has been instigated and perpetuated by white men. As Black expats working along other expats from other countries or working along local people, we found ourselves trying to reconcile these mixed emotions while explaining the situation, which requires a heavy amount of historical context, and also trying to make sure that our opinions are reconciled within ourselves. This is not only burdensome, but it intensifies the distance that we already feel between our families caused by COVID-19. And if you are a non-Black viewer watching this show, please do not ask your Black friends to explain the situation to you. We all have the access to internet. If you're watching this, and that means that you have a pretty healthy internet speed. And so if you want to know more about perspectives and critical conversations going on, please take the responsibility and seek those out yourself. And many of these can be revealed by a simple Google search. Another talking point that we wanted to address on this show that has been highlighted across social media posts around the globe is the disparity of protest, solidarity, and outrage over the slaying of Black women. Years ago, Say Her Name was a hashtag created to highlight the deaths and the slayings of Black women, but also to highlight the fact that they don't receive the amount of media coverage and, frankly, the energy as when a Black male dies. And just in the past several months, Black women have been killed, or in the case of a Texas woman just this past week, she was shot with a rubber bullet in her stomach, putting the life of her unborn child at risk, even though she was just peacefully protesting. And her reaction was actually captured by a photographer at the rally, which we'll show just here soon. And so people have asked on these message boards and in conversations, why is it that we know mostly of the names of countless Black males who, I'm actually going to stop just so we can see this image. The image of the woman holding the person's foot is actually just right after she has been shot in the stomach with a rubber bullet. And I felt like this was a really important thing to put on the show today because it humanizes protesters, right? I mean, of course, in our eyes, they're already humanized, but it also allows us to connect with what that moment must have been like. And so going on, the question that has been asked is, why is it that we know countless names of Black males who have been slain, but people like Sandra Bland and Breonna Taylor are the most notable, yet haven't sparked the same outrage as someone like Michael Brown or Antoine Sterling? In a research publication for the Pennsylvania United Press, in a paper titled Women in Black Lives Matter, writers Marcia Chantelaine and Kavanya Asoka cite the following from their abstract. And I'm just going to go ahead and read it here. A growing number of Black Lives Matter activists have been refocusing attention on how police brutality impacts Black women and others on the margins of today's national conversation about race, such as the poor, elderly, gay, and trans people. They are not only highlighting the impact of police violence on these communities, but articulating why a movement for racial justice must be inclusive. Say Her Name, for an example, an initiative launched in May, documents and analyzes Black women's experience of police violence and explains that we lose what we lose when we ignore them. We not only miss half the facts, we fundamentally fail to grasp how the laws, policies, and the culture underpinned gender inequalities and are reinforced by America's racial divide. Alrighty, and finally, the good news that we're all craving. So some good news from around the world. Dozens of cities have came out to show their solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, as the video of George Floyd's death has been seen by hundreds and thousands of people around the world. According to Al Jazeera, which provided the photos you'll see here, cities like Berlin, Amsterdam, Auckland, London, Rio de Janeiro, Montreal, and countries like Iran and Syria have come out to protest in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. Protests yelled things like no justice, no peace, how many more, justice for George Floyd. And I'm not sure about you, but this brought me a tremendous amount of peace as I realized that our fights for justice and accountability have not only touched the hearts of those around the world, but have been equally appalling as they are in our communities. International governments have also used this time to chastise Trump over his response to protests and highlight the hypocrisy of the U.S., which condemns other countries for interfering with their democratic processes, with the president of Iran tweeting, and I quote, "Some think Black lives don't matter. To those of us who do, it is long overdue for the entire world to wage a war against racism." Alrighty, so this actually ends our news updates for today. We kind of wanted to keep it short and sweet, talk about some of the trending streams of thought and ideas around the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States, but also the global conversation that it's creating about racism, inherent biases, and how different people representing different groups of color, as well as white people from around the world, have come together to to show that it's not black against white. It's not one race against another race. It is people and people actively doing anti-racist work, living anti-racist lives, and trying to fight off harmful stereotypes and racial biases and racists and their enablers, which would be moderates. Okay, so we are going to shift the conversation just a little bit. We want to talk about one of Ebony Expats' main objectives, which is providing a platform for Black expats and travelers to share their experiences. So we're now going to catch up with Stefan Turner as he shares his extraordinary journey of being a long-term expat and finding a way to pursue his love of performing art here in Thailand. So can you please welcome Stephan Turner?
Hey.
Hello.
Hi. Leanne, thank you so much for having me on this morning. I've been following you, and you have been doing an amazing job. Keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That really hits me. Hits the heart. Yeah, we're so honored to have you. I took some time to go over to look at your website and see some of the things that you've done, and it's just absolutely amazing. I think we were talking about this before the show. There's just been so much negative content, negative news, and it's becoming very burdensome. So it's quite a pleasure to be able to talk about someone who's done something that so many people have questions about. So can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about where you're from, your background, and how long you've lived in Thailand.
Okay, well, how long we have? How many minutes?
We have all the time we need. but
my,
just,
name, my name is Stefan Turner, and I was born in Gary, Indiana. And I went to school there, um, kindergarten, middle school, high school. And then I went to university at Indiana University Northwest to study scenic design and stage lighting. And once I finished that, I mean, I went to Chicago so that I could audition for the acting conservatory at the Goodman School of Drama, which at the time was located at the Art Institute of Chicago. And I passed the audition and they let me in. And I went on to finish that course in the stage acting program. And after that, uh, formed the Stage Actors Ensemble of Chicago. We're talking in 1993, sometime around that point. With Stage Actors Ensemble, we put together some touring shows. I went around the state of Indiana, the state of Illinois, performing, and we raised enough money to build out a loft space on the north side of Chicago called the Performance Loft. And I worked there producing, directing, acting for a number of years until my mother, who was a long-time cancer survivor. During all of this time, my mom became ill, and her health started to fade. And it was also during a time in Chicago when the city of Chicago were really coming down on small businesses, theaters and other small businesses. And so we were having problems with the city, with fire codes and other safety codes and violations and things like this. And it was also during a time that I had traveled to Thailand a couple of times. And well, my mom eventually passed, and I took a look around me and I said, you know, I don't want to be here right now. Everything around me kind of reminds me of my mom. Everything I look at, every place I go. I said, you know, I think I'm gonna call it quits here for now. And so I was lucky enough to find another theater company that wanted to buy everything we had. And so I sold up. I sold up, and I'm talking about a lot of stuff. A theater company that's been existing for maybe 10 years. We build up a lot of technical equipment, scenery, costumes, things like this. And so I was fortunate enough to have somebody come in and just buy everything. And when that happened, it freed me up. I was able to travel. I had been in Thailand a number of times by then. I had not been to Chiang Mai, and I decided, hey, I'm going back to Thailand. I'm going to have some peace and quiet, and I'm going to party and do a lot of things that I hadn't had a chance to do. So I did, and then I went to Cambodia for 2 years, and I
Okay.
taught English in Cambodia for 2 years, along with some other things, and got burned out a bit. I wasn't ready to go back to the U.S., so I came back to Thailand and I visited Chiang Mai, and I thought, wow, it's a nice place, very small compared to Bangkok. And I thought to myself, this would be a great place to open up a small theater company. And I was pretty naive at the time. I didn't know. Like so many people who come to Thailand, I hadn't done all of my homework. I didn't know about the visa restrictions and everything that goes along with being a long time resident in Thailand. But over the course of the years, I navigated through it, and I like Chiang Mai, and I'm still here.
And how long have you been in Chiang Mai now?
Going about 17 years.
Wow, almost 2 decades. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I want to go on to talk a little bit more about your performance artwork. So I personally, after I visited your website, stephanturner.com, I was absolutely blown away by the sheer number of productions you've put on and just your level of community outreach. I've lived in 3 countries myself and done quite a bit of community outreach, and I know that just growing roots in the community, it's quite the process to do something like that. So I personally really appreciated that fact. So in addition to that, though, you taught at Chiang Mai International School as a department head for the theater and arts program for several years. So can you tell us how that came about?
Oh, well, you know, that came about because of my purpose. I believe that every human being is born with a purpose. Some people call it a gift, their purpose. Um, when I came to Chiang Mai, I still had my purpose, although I hadn't respected it. I hadn't respected my gifts and my purpose for the couple of years that I was in Cambodia. But when I got to Chiang Mai and I had a chance to clear my head, you know, it all came back to me. Why I'm here. What do I want to do that's going to be here after I'm gone? And so I got back to my purpose and I started thinking about it. And that's when I formed the Gate Theater Group. I formed the Gate Theater Group before I was head of department at Chiang Mai International School.
Okay.
Yeah, I had been working with the Gate for a couple of years, trying to get it going, trying to keep it going, really, because at that point we didn't have a house. Excuse me. Need a drink.
Oh, please.
At that point, we didn't have a place to call a home. And so I was reading one of the, oh, my voice is going. I'm so sorry. I
No, it's okay. Take care of yourself. It's okay. Wait.
was reading one of the online websites, job sites, and I came across an ad for Chiang Mai International School. They were looking for a teacher who had some technical background. And I said, wow, that sounds like me. And I applied, and sure enough, they called me up and had me come in for an interview. And getting back to purpose, I never would have found that ad. I never would have met these people had it not been for my purpose in life. And so I went in. We had a conversation, and the principal at the time was very interested in in the fact that I had a strong technical background. So they hired me because they wanted to build out their own theater and turn it into a place where they could perform so that the students wouldn't have to go outside. At the time, the Chiang Mai International School was performing outside of their own campus because they didn't have a suitable place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so the principal wanted me to come in and convert their space into a performance space that they could use and not have to go out. And so that was the number one purpose in him having me come in, is because I had that background. And again, back to purpose. My purpose here as an artist, as a theater artist, and it just so happened that my talents and abilities matched with what was needed at the time, and that's how the Chiang Mai International School job came to me.
Okay. Okay, that's extremely fascinating. And if I'm correct, you were head of that department for about 8 years?
Yeah, 8 years and a few months exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about impact. But that's absolutely amazing. And so one of the projects that you've done was your work on the Spike Lee production, which is coming out next Friday, The Five Bloods. And you have photos on your Facebook as well as on your website with cast members, and it seems like you had an active role. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, that was a great experience. I happened to be, again, goes back to purpose. You know, everything that I had done previously to meeting Spike and Wynn Thomas, the art director for the film, is the reason why I was involved in that film. Wynn Thomas, um, the art director for the film, was in town maybe 3 months before Spike even got here.
Okay.
Yeah, he was here working. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. It so happened that the consulate general at the time, her name is Jenny, and I can't tell you her last name. I used to know it because I looked her up, but I didn't know her beforehand. Now I'm at home chilling out one day, and I get a phone call, and the lady says, "Hey, Stefan, it's Jenny. How you doing?" And I think to myself, Jenny, uh, I don't know who this is.
Yeah.
So, so in order to be polite and at least give the impression that I know who this is, I go, "Oh, hey, Jenny, how you doing? Nice to talk to you again. How's everything?" She goes, "Oh, everything's fine, Stefan. I want to know if you're interested in meeting Spike Lee and helping him out with his film." And I said,
Wow.
"No, no, I didn't." I said, "Well, yeah, I would be. When do you want me to come over there? Right now?" And she goes, "Well, he's not in town yet, but Wynn Thomas is here, and he's the art director, and he would like to meet you." And I said, "Well, when? Let me know. I'm there." And
Right.
she said, "Well, I'll call you back. I'll get back in touch with you." But I told him something, some bits and pieces about you, the Gate Theater, and being over at CMIS and teaching drama all this time. And so I filled him in, and I just wanted to let you know that I wanted to give him your phone number. I said, "Yeah, sure, fine. Thank you very much." So again, going back to purpose, you know
Awesome. Yeah.
my my purpose in life, and that's what got me in touch with Wynn Thomas and Spike Lee. Being here, trying to focus on what I believe is my purpose in life. So sure enough, I didn't see Spike because he wasn't in town yet. But I got a call maybe 2 days later, 3 days later, from one of the production assistants with the film. And he said, "Hey, Stefan, how you doing? Spike's here. He wants to meet you." I said, "Okay, where is he?" And they told me where he was and where to come and what time. I said, "Great, I'll be there." I get a call back in about the time that I'm supposed to be there, on the way there. And he said, "Well, Spike's busy right now, but we want you to come a little bit later." Well, I was on the way already, so I just went and waited
Hmm.
a few minutes. And I'm waiting in the waiting area, and then the assistant comes out and he picks me up and takes me around to meet Spike. And we walk around through the hotel to the bar area, and there he is sitting at a table, looking exactly like he looks. I mean, the camera doesn't change anything, take anything off. He looks exactly the way he looks on camera, and
Yeah.
he's sitting at a table. And I come in, he goes, "Oh, hey, Stephen, have a seat, man. You want a drink?" And I had been off liquor for about almost a year. And I said,
Oh,
yeah, man, I want
yeah,
to
that's perfect.
give me a drink, give me a drink. And so we sat there. Spike likes sweet drinks. He likes pina coladas and mimosas and anything that's sweet, you know. So we sat there and we talked, and he wanted to know about me and uh, what my life has been like here in Chiang Mai in Thailand. How long? You know, the usual questions, the same type of questions that you're asking me this morning. And near the end of the conversation, he goes, you know, man, I need some black people. And I said, well, I know a few. How
Yeah,
many? Can you get 100? I, I said, well, yeah, I can get 100. It goes good because I'm going to need them here. We're going to have a party, and I'm going to need them for extras in my film. I said, well, hey, man, you know, I can get 100. No worries, no problem. Of course, I didn't have any idea where I was going to get 100 African Americans at the
right.
time. So immediately, my mind goes to Binky.
I was about to say Binky. Binky's your guy. You must have hit up Binky. Yeah,
Binky knows every black person that ever came to Chiang Mai. He
right.
knows a lot of them in Bangkok. So, you know, I get on the phone. I go, Binky, man, I need 100. I need 100 African Americans. Can you get them? He goes, man, don't worry, Stefan, I got you. So I talked to one of the other uh, production assistants because she was also working on this. She called me every day. Stefan, how about it? You going to get these people? I said, yeah, don't worry about it. I got them.
Yeah,
No worries at all. I'm still kind of worried because I don't know. I mean, 100 black folks in Chiang Mai? No, not going to happen. Not without Binky's help. That wouldn't happen. And so,
I completely.
yeah, yeah. So Binky came through. Um, I was in Vietnam with Spike. When they hired me as a casting assistant. So
Okay.
that meant that I had to be everywhere he was going to get his cast together. I had to be there because I did a lot of reading with the prospective cast members. And so we were in Vietnam. We left in the afternoon, early late morning afternoon, headed to Vietnam, and we get to Vietnam at around 6 p.m. 6 p.m., 7 p.m. because it took so long. We had to transfer planes. Everybody was kind of tired, you know. But when we get to the hotel, you put your bags down and you go right up to the room where they're holding auditions. And we had some auditions that night. You know, we were working that night. The following
Okay.
first thing in the morning, casting, working in. We had a large suite where we had people coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And so by the second day, I was real tired. We didn't finish working until almost 10 p.m. And then we went up to the roof to have dinner and drinks. So by the time I got back down to my room, not only was I a little high, I was tired, but I had to get on the phone and call Binky because Spike is the last thing Spike said to me was, yeah, we're having that party, man. And I need those people. I said, don't
Right.
worry. And I still don't know what the situation is. So I get back down to my room. I get Binky on Facebook and have a chat with him face to face. And he's telling me, man, we need to go over to the entrepreneurship center. And I said, but man, he said he wants it in a bar. I said, man, the bars are not as nice as the entrepreneurship center. And I don't think I had been to the center yet, so I didn't have any idea what it was. All I know is Spike's telling me I want it in a bar. And so, you know, I said, Binky, man, he wants it in a bar. So I talked to Binky. He said, okay, I'll see what I can do. And he came back with me with a suggestion of a bar that I knew, and I knew that it wasn't going to work. And so
Yeah.
in the meantime, another production assistant who's at the office in Chiang Mai, not far from the entrepreneurship center. She had gone over and seen the place and sent me an email and said, "Oh, I like this place." I said, "But Spike said he wants it in a bar." She said, "You know, I'll deal with Spike." I said, "Okay." So I get with Binky. I say, "Binky, okay. It's going to be at the Entrepreneurship Center. That's fine. Do it there. And Spike, the next morning, first thing he asked me, "You get the bar set up?" I said, "We got a place that's better than a bar." He said, "Well, I told you," and this is the way he. I told you I wanted in a bar.
Yeah.
Don't these other people. I'm the boss. Put it in a bar. I said, okay, don't worry, Spike. We'll take care of it. And I left it alone. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't say anything else about the party. I didn't say anything else about the bar. I just said, we got you covered, Spike. Don't worry about it. And I knew I was going to get fired. After that, I knew I was going to get fired. We got back to Chiang Mai. I think somebody had taken Spike over to look at the place, and he was like, "Yeah, I like this place. This is pretty good. I like this
Because
place."
it is perfect for those purposes. It is yeah. You
Yeah.
just had to
And so I said, "Great. I'm so happy you're happy." And that's how that whole thing came about, with me getting introduced to Spike, and then getting the entrepreneurship involved. Uh, Binky is the one that handled getting all the people together in order to pull that whole thing off. And I don't know if Binky is listening, but a big shout out to him. He's back in the U.S.
shout out to Big Brother Binky. Yeah,
But
definitely. Because I flew. I heard about the party, like, I want to say maybe 5, 6 p.m. the night before. And Binky was like, "You got to get here. It's tomorrow." And so I went to ask my boss, short notice, was like, "Can I have tomorrow off?" And I was like, "Spike Lee's in town." And my boss knew who Spike Lee was. And he was like, "Yeah, you can have it off." He's like, "I might need to move some things." I was like, "Can I be very clear? I will not be here tomorrow. So make sure you have staff." And I was on a flight. I know I had to leave my house at like 4 in the morning to get to a flight at 6 and then I was in Chiang Mai, went shopping, everything for the party that night. And I remember the first thing I think I said to Spike was like, "Do you know how long I've been, do you know how early I had to get up this morning?" Like, yeah, but it was an incredible party. And it was something that I didn't believe was actually going to happen until the moment that he walked in. I just thought it was going to be one of those situations like, "Oh, Spike had a stomach ache, but enjoy the drinks." Yeah. So it was absolutely amazing how many people worked with that. And that Spike Lee doesn't call every day.
oh,
Yeah.
it took me 16 years of being here in Chiang Mai, trying to practice my craft, you know, and to have somebody like Spike Lee come to town and have his people ask for me, you know, that that kind of that kind of set me back a bit and really made me think about how blessed I am. How blessed I am to be here. How blessed I am to be alive during this time. Spike Lee's birthday was right before mine, so we had a chance to kind of celebrate our birthdays at the same time. And he's kind of on the same tip as I am in terms of purpose. I keep coming back to that because it's so important. Not and not just to me. I think everybody, everybody has a purpose, and the sooner that we discover what that purpose is, the better for us, and the better for what we leave behind when we're no longer here. So this whole thing with Spike Lee kind of gave me a new perspective and a new energy, to keep focused, to keep working, to keep doing what it is I'm here to do. And so yeah, I don't want to keep going back to that, and I don't want to keep harping on the same thing. So let's go
But
on.
yeah, it's so important though. It's so important. And speaking of purpose and the journey starting, acknowledging your purpose, and polishing your craft, and then at the end, like a graduation, getting to work with Spike Lee. A big part of Ebony Expats is empowering people to consider the idea of moving abroad. and kind of providing the information necessary for them to do so. So, as our last question to you, what would you say to someone who's ready to take the plunge, ready to move abroad for whatever reason, and is maybe apprehensive about pursuing their purpose in another country?
Hmm. Okay. Well, you hit it. You said apprehensive about pursuing their purpose in another country. It doesn't matter where you are.
Mhm.
If you come with your purpose intact, it doesn't matter where you are. I'm living proof of that. I think one mistake that we make when we decide to go abroad or go someplace to a country that's not our own, is that we come to a place and we forget that where we are, there we are. Wherever you go, there you are. So equally as important as having a purpose and knowing what your purpose is to not forget that because you leave one place and go to live in another place, any insecurities, problems, self-doubt, any kind of hang-ups that you had at home, you're going to have them when you get to the new place where you're going.
Amen. Yeah.
So if 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 you're not solid in who you are and what your purpose is, you can easily become sidetracked and fall into any number, any manner of things that are happening on the periphery that you don't really need to be involved in. Again, I'm living proof of that. I was fortunate. I was able to get my head together in Cambodia and get my ass, excuse me, get back over here where I could work. So I would say to anybody that's planning on leaving the country, coming to Thailand or going to any other country, know what your purpose is and be able to work on your purpose no matter where you are. Secondly, coming to Thailand, I've seen a lot of African Americans. You know, I won't say black people because there are a lot of black people in Thailand who are not African American. But I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of, in particular, who come to Thailand, Chiang Mai in particular, and and they are captivated by the city, and the way of life here, the weather, the people, the food, you know, and we become so captivated in that we fail sometimes to look at what's involved in staying in a place like this.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't just come here and set up shop and expect to be able to stay here as long as you want to stay here. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that in any country, to my knowledge. So when you come to Thailand, when you come to Chiang Mai, do your homework. Understand what it takes to live here. You have to understand the visa situation. You have to understand the laws that involve uh, being able to maintain a visa. There are a lot of draconian laws on the books in Thailand. There are a lot of laws that relate to visa that are not
Mm.
enforced. And what do you know? One morning you wake up and all of a sudden a law that's been on the books for 40 years is now being enforced. For example, a lot of people don't realize that when you're living in Thailand, you want to travel, you go outside the country, you come back in. Legally, you're required to have 20,000 baht in your pocket,
Mm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
not dollars, not credit card, 20,000 Thai baht. Now, 100,000 people can walk through customs every day and they will never be asked about, do you have 20,000 baht in your pocket? But you know what? On the day that you walk through, you might be asked that question. And so it's not doesn't have anything to do with the color of your skin. It might feel like it. I mean, you might get to customs, and then someone will say, "Okay, do you have 20,000 baht?" And being a black person, I might feel the same way. I might look at it and go, "Well, no, I don't have 20,000 baht. Why are you asking me for 20,000 baht? I have a visa.
Right.
I have a passport. That's all I need." You know,
Right.
it depends. It depends on who you're talking to that day, what kind of day they had. It could involve a lot of things. So
Yeah.
I didn't mean to really stretch that out so long, but it just goes to the point of knowing what's involved in staying in a place. If you're going to come to Thailand, to Chiang Mai, there are a few ways that you can stay here long term legally. You know, uh, Folks come and they work online and they have a tourist visa, and the tourist visa is going to run out, which means that you're going to have to go outside the country, come back in, go outside the country, come back in. Now, Thai customs, immigration are looking at this, and they're looking at your passport, seeing if you're abusing the system, and some of us are, and then we run into problems. So
Right.
I just say, do your homework, uh, know what's involved in staying long term if you want to stay long term, uh, and be try to be legal. Try to be legal because then you won't have any problems.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Anywhere moving abroad, anywhere you definitely have to. The visa should be the number one priority. Well, I just want to thank you so much again, Stefan, for coming and talking to us. I really hope to check out Gate Theater Group my next time in Chiang Mai. Maybe see if I have a hand in acting. I'll tell you, I
Oh,
don't.
I'm always looking for talent, especially African American talent. I'm a theater artist, but I would love to be able to do more work by our African American writers. I've only very scratched the surface of that because I have to do what's going to attract the general public. But
Right.
I hope we can. I hope we can encourage some other African Americans, male and female, to come and get involved with the Gate Theater. We can do some amazing work here. There are writers and artists out there that are doing some amazing work, and we should have an opportunity to do some of it here.
Right. 100%. And you never know where it could lead. I mean, especially looking at your case, sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit. All we need is
Thank you.
help and time.
100%. Thank you so much again. And thank you, everyone who is tuning in to Ebony Expat News. We just want, before we go, the movie that Stefan was working on was The Five Bloods, which comes out next Friday, June 12th on Netflix. Ebony Expats is hosting a watch party. And so we're going to be able to have a platform where everyone can join. We can watch it together and just celebrate basically the Black artistry that went into this film, Black expats who were extras and parts of this film, and just Spike Lee's purpose, as has been talked about a lot in the show, and how he has been able to catapult Black voices and really create opportunity for Black stories to be told by Black people. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Ebony Expats News, and we will see you next week. Have a good week. Take it easy and take care of yourself. Goodbye.
Bye.